Hi, I'm Simon Sporter, and welcome to the latest of our videos, bringing people to our group who are interesting for clubs and venues in tennis. Today, I've got Sophie Curthoys with us from the property management team at the LTA. Welcome, Sophie.
Hi, Simon.
So Sophie is going to talk to us all about our loan funding and sources of loans and potentially for grants to support our clubs and venues across the country. But to start with, Sophie, would you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you get to be working with the LTA? And we've obviously spoken previously, so I know, but everybody else would like to know a bit about your sort of story.
So I've always played tennis since I was very young, sort of coming up through sort of various junior programs, and I still play now, sort of club tennis in Middlesex, or previously from Hertfordshire originally. When I went to university, I did a sports science degree, and I was always passionate about the kind of physiology and psychology of sport, but also really passionate about encouraging people to get involved in sport and physical activity. So when I left university, I worked at Sport England for a number of years, primarily looking after lottery investments into projects around the country. And then I came to the LTA about 15 years ago, and I've had a few roles here. I was a club development lead for many years. I've also worked with quite a lot of the commercial sector, and over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working in the property team, investing in facilities around the country.
Okay, great. So one thing that I've always identified when we've spoken and when you did a Q&A with us a while ago was the fact that you understand how clubs operate and how they work, and you're passionate to support them. So you're always going out of your way to find solutions in the whole, how can we fund projects? How can we do things? So, which is very exciting. So tell me about the loan funding side of things. Can you kind of simplify it for anyone who knows nothing about it?
So here at the LTA, we're really fortunate to have a pot of funding that we can invest in venues around the country, whether that's clubs or local authorities, or the education sector. We're very fortunate because a lot of other governing bodies don't have access to that funding. It is a finite pot of money. So a decision was taken 5 years ago that we should offer loan funding rather than grant funding, because if we just gave all the money out, there wouldn't be another pot in 10 years' time. So for us, it's really important that we loan the funding, and it's on very favourable terms. It's interest-free, which is great, particularly in the current climate. So we can recycle that money back into the sport. So we run a loan scheme. It's always open. There aren't sort of funding rounds and funding windows, so you can always contact us through our website or through the regional team, put in an expression of interest, and then one of the members of the team will contact you to talk about the principles of your project and how it aligns to our priorities, and then we're sort of there to support through the process. We're very committed to supporting the venues, and we don't want venues to spend a lot of time pulling together their business plan and their application for a project that potentially isn't supportable. So we will kind of advise and support as the project progresses.
Okay. And for example, let's talk last year. How many clubs, venues, authorities did you help last year, taking a project from an idea all the way through to fruition?
So because it is a bit of a rolling programme, some are on there for a while, and
Sure.
particularly with the planning process as it is at the minute, some projects take quite a while to secure planning. But since we started in 2019, we have invested around £2.5 million of LTA funding into venues, and we do approximately 25 projects a year, and they could be varying in scale from covered tennis courts or covered paddle to smaller scale schemes such as upgrading floodlighting to LED, or adding a new court at a venue. So the scale is sort of quite diverse really in the projects that we work with.
So there are no sort of minimums and maximums to the amount of money, or are there?
Yeah, there's one. So as we're not regulated by the Financial Standards Authority, so we cannot make loans under £25,000. They're just sort of financial regulations. So our minimum level of investment has to be £25,000 and 1p.
Okay.
But
And would you,
there
yeah,
is no upper limit potentially in terms of what we will fund. But we do have a framework which is available on our website, which indicates what percentage of funding we will put into the type of project. So, as an example, to try and encourage more covered tennis courts, we will look to invest up to 80% of the costs of covered tennis through the
right.
framework, and it's slightly less for projects such as paddle, which is 60%. So we're quite clear around the kind of expectation in terms of potential partnership funding from applicants.
Okay, and you would look for the balance of those funds to come from clubs funds or potentially from a grant. If a club was able to achieve a grant, you wouldn't look for the club to, for example, or venue to borrow money from a third party. Would that be one of the rules, or
No,
is
no,
that
no, it
okay?
just
Well,
depends, really. So we sort of encourage venues to look at all sources of partnership funding. So there's grants available. Sport England still run their small grants scheme, which is up to £15,000. They also run a fund called Active Together, which is based on crowdfunding. So we do see a lot of clubs doing a lot of independent fundraising through crowdfunder. And then Sport England will match up to £10,000 of that fundraising. But we're seeing clubs bringing in £60,000-70,000 in some cases through that crowdfunding route. There are other sources like the county associations. Some of those run a loan scheme, so we often see that as partnership funding. And sort of potentially securing Section 106 money from local authorities. So there's a variety, of partnership funding that comes from.
okay. And I think is there some money from, is it water companies or utility companies in some areas of the country, or Scotland and Wales as well?
Yeah, so there's the main one is a landfill tax trust.
Right. Okay.
That we do see that as partnership funding. I mean, it depends where you are in the country, but it's best just to kind of Google, funding sources for sports clubs in this area, and you can come up with quite a lot of relevant sources. And actually, that's where our regional delivery team can also support in trying to secure partnership funding. We also see some of the bigger clubs taking out member loans,
Right.
as support for their schemes. So
Yes. Okay. And with the projects, what you've mentioned, for example, LED or indoor courts, for example, or paddle, what are you getting through the majority? Are you getting clubs and venues who are looking more at the smaller projects, say 15, 20, 25,000 of loan from you, or are you looking at those bigger projects? What's the typical example right now?
yeah, there's a bit of a mix actually. So this year we've already funded 7 projects. One's a club with 2 indoor courts and 2 covered paddle. We've contributed a small amount to a club that's having their courts upgraded from a shale surface up in Scotland to a year-round artificial clay with floodlighting. We've been a very shortfall funder in a few paddle projects where the applicants managed to secure quite a lot of partnership funding. So there's a real mix. New courts,
Yeah.
yes, we do a real mix across all the provision. There has been a lot of interest in paddle over the last 18 months or so.
And what happens if, for example, a club has had a history of coming to you for either grants or even loans? Does that prejudice them against applying again, or can they keep applying for new projects as long as they haven't got too much on the go at the same time?
Yeah, no, we have supported venues to with a number of loans. So as an example, there was a club in Kent that wanted to put some paddle in, so we supported that. During COVID, their membership of their tennis section grew significantly. So they've actually converted 3 grass courts into a year-round surface, and that was their second loan. So we will support venues on more than one occasion. We don't sort of have hard and fast rules, but we do look at the available funding that a venue has got, the type of projects. So if a kind of a more commercial paddle operation came to us to deliver two or three courts, and they were really successful and they generated a load of income from that, and then they came back to us again to reinvest in more paddle, we might say that you've created a business case really for paddle, and
Yes.
we helped you to deliver your first three courts. If you want to do more, perhaps you need to look at a commercial loan.
Okay, and I get that. And if, for example, that we've got across the countries, we've got lots of different sizes of clubs and venues. So you don't care whether it's 2 courts or 10-court club, you will support them on the merits of the project. Is that right?
We support on the merits of the project and the amount of funding that they have access to. We're just looking at a project at the moment, which is a 3-court tennis club that is really busy, and their membership's very significant, and they're quite landlocked, but they wish to add a 4th court with floodlights. So we'll support that, and we've supported a number of smaller clubs to convert their old halide lighting to LED. So yeah, we do fund a real variety of size venues.
Okay, so sorry, lots of questions I've got for you. So the next one I've thought of is, what's the typical length of the loan in general? Is it fixed or is it negotiable?
Yeah, so they're negotiable. On our framework, we give a guide. So as an example, for covered paddle, it's between 5 and 10 years, the repayment periods. But we do ask applicants to complete a kind of cash flow forecast for us and with us, so that we can ensure that the loan is repayable, because we don't want a lot of bad debts or venues getting themselves into difficulty because they've taken out a loan with us. So if we're very comfortable that the loan can be recovered over a quicker period, we will put that stipulation that we'd like the money back on a shorter repayment term, just so that we can then reinvest it back into other venues. So yeah, we do have a framework for that, but it's broadly between 5 and 10 years.
Okay. And from the perspective of conditions, so I know the LTA, and quite frankly, most people in tennis go along with it, the idea of going to getting more people playing tennis and tennis opened up. So what conditions are there, if any, with reference to working with the LTA from a loan perspective? I know there are 1 or 2 stipulations that you ask the venue or the club to do, or to involve themselves in.
Yeah, so our vision is tennis opens up and encouraging more people to participate in the sport. So we will look through our work with the venues for venues to operate, if they operate a membership scheme, that they also operate a pay and play offer as well. So that's not just members, non-members accessing the coaching program. It's giving the ability of non-members to book courts at the venue. So we have that as a stipulation to our investments. All the funding that we have for facility projects sits within the LTA Tennis Foundation's remit. And we want to make sure that tennis is opened up on an equitable basis. And there are people that want to play once a month with a friend, and they don't want to join a members club, but they'd like to access the courts that are local to them, which may be within a club venue. So we do ask venues to open up their facilities on a pay and play basis.
Yes, but that doesn't mean, because I've been asked the question, it doesn't mean that they have to have a gate access system. They just simply have to have a way. You'll support a gate access system, I believe, but they just have to have a way of allowing people from the community to come into the club to enjoy the facilities and to hopefully at some stage become full members even.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we will fund a gate access system as part of any loan that we make to venues, but yeah, as long as there's an online booking platform and people can access the courts, that's an appropriate way to deliver pay and play.
Okay, so if, having listened to this video, somebody says, something, it really doesn't sound that difficult, what do they need to do next?
So on the LTA website, there's a facility funding page which explains a quick access loan scheme and shows a framework of the level of investment we'll make into types of projects. At the bottom of that page, there's an expression of interest form, which you just fill in with your venue's name, details, the type of project you're after. Complete that, that comes into our team, and we will contact those venues direct to talk about the project and potentially offer some advice about, you know, how we take the process forward.
And is it done all sort of by sort of telephone conversation, Zoom conversation, in-person meetings? What's the general modus of operation here? And
Yeah.
it depends on planning permission and things you said. How long typically, if planning permission is just dead easy and the council just cooperates and it just happens almost by return, say they come back, say within a couple of months if an application is required, how long does this kind of whole cycle take as well? So that's a double question.
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, when applicants come into us, we will start that process with them. If they've got a business plan and, you know, they know the project, they've got some quotes that, you know, we can turn it around really quickly, and they can almost start sites in a few weeks' time. We have a regular approvals process through the trustees of the Tennis Foundation. So projects, you know, we've got one that's hopefully going forward this month. We had the application about 3 weeks ago. It'd probably be a 5 or 6 week turnaround. They've already got planning permission. But it does vary really depending on the scheme. But look, we're not here really to hold stuff up. There is a form that we do require people to fill in, which is a cash flow form. I think it's actually quite useful for venues to forward plan their finances and when they're going to resurface their courts, and make sure that they've got provision for that within their budgeting. We ask for a business plan, which is how you're going to achieve the objectives that you set out in your cash flow.
Yes.
We ask for 2 years of accounts, and that's about it. You know, it's not, you know, there is work required, but it's not hugely onerous.
Okay, so some clubs will kind of have done quite a lot of research beforehand. Some of them will come to you at that initial stage just to see, well, kind of who are these people who I'm going to be working with, and then you'll kind of help them a little bit. They'll probably then go away, do a lot of the foundation work, and then come back to you when they're then ready. So that you work with both models in effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think that's answered all of my questions. Is there anything else that I've missed that you'd like to share with the community?
Just a few points on our website. There's lots of guidance notes and advice on how to go about planning projects at your venue, whether that's floodlighting, things you need to consider, adding in paddle. You know, there's a lot. It's more technical kind of guidance, but sort of it's designed to sort of walk people through the process of what they would need to do if they're, you know, want to go down that route. In terms of the sort of total investment that we've made since 2019, we've invested about £10 million in the network and delivered over 90 projects. So, you know, there's a lot of tennis venues that have benefited from LTA investment, hopefully helped them to grow their club and their program and potentially add paddle. So yeah, those are the main points really.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Sophie, for coming to talk to us. Hopefully you'll get a whole load of new applicants and interested clubs and venues coming to you as a result, and we'll stay in touch, and hopefully you'll come back and talk to us again soon.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Simon.
Thank you.